life for none of us has been a crystal stair, but we must keep moving. We must keep going. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl, but by all means, keep moving.
Sankofa Impact has never done anything like this before. Our organization has never done anything like this before. And then you add in the complexities of creating a documentary around it all. There's a lot of nuances that are happening all at once and a lot of opportunities for things to go wrong. And so I think we anticipate the wrong. I think we anticipate the failure. I think that's what's been key and core to the success of this relationship. That and the fact that we're both driven by the same goal. It's to see the spirit of Sankofa honored, this understanding of looking back and moving forward, not as a staggered step, but as a simultaneous process of taking that which is in your past and moving forward at the same time. I would love it if every individual that's journeying with us goes home with a firmer grip on who they are because they have a better understanding of where we've come from.
We're doing this thing. We are doing this thing, headed to New Orleans to begin this journey from the South, to be able to examine its history, dive in deeper so our team can come back stronger, smarter, and encourage, that we're on a journey someplace that's different than where we started, and I'm pumped.
They can expect to be challenged, to feel uncomfortable at varying moments throughout the experience. They can expect to feel joy and camaraderie with each other. There's a real potential here around community building and belonging and team building, and I think that that's what they may already possess some of that because they work together, but this will just deepen that experience.
I'm Stella Chase Reese, and on behalf of the Chase family, I'd like to thank you for dining here at Dookie Chase's. It means a lot to my family, especially I learned more about what you do, and you are aligned to what we are all about, social justice. When you walked into our building, you actually walked into the original dining room, and that's the dining room that you would be able to find the Freedom Bus riders when they came. They all came through those doors. Muhammad Ali through those doors. Lena Horne, Nat King Cole, Duke Ellington, James Baldwin, Thurgood Marshall, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, the list goes on, all through the door that you came into. But it was also the room where the private meetings were held and where the strategizing took place. And many times it was also not only the African American, but our Caucasian people who came in and helped us to strategize. Of course, at that time, most of our politicians and our mayors were not African American. So how could you strategize? How could you find a way for all of us to come together without meeting with someone? And so even though it was against the law, kind of overlooked it, and we met upstairs and they strategized and came up with next steps. Our doors are now open to what my grandparents and my parents and of course us all dreamed, that one day we'd all be able to come together, enjoy each one of our cultures. And my mother told us always as we grew up, we were told that you have to be proud of who you are and to know who you are to be able to accept others. And then if you're proud of who you are, then you listen and you learn and you understand why people are proud of who they are as well.
Our organization exists to transform systems that cause harm and support the young people who are impacted by them. Very practically, what that looks like is where systems are doing things like criminalizing the behavior of young people. We partner with those systems to co-create programming that allows for young people to get access to community instead of courtrooms. And because they receive grace instead of guilt, over 90% of the time, they're not returning to the criminal legal system within 12 months of engaging in our program. We see young people as possible. We see system partners as possible, and we allow the miracle, transforming power of grace to galvanize a way forward that allows both those things to be held with integrity.
We approach it by starting with the foundations. It doesn't matter which group we're bringing. We're trying to focus on the foundations of this country, how this country was built, on by whose labor, by whose hands, on whose backs.
You know, I'm actually quite anxious as I sit here to just talk about what I experienced today. It was super awkward, you know, to kind of learn this history that, you know, we sit here and we look in these textbooks and these history books and we get a different perspective from different folks. And it is important that folks, you know, kind of get this history as, you know, we've never seen it before, especially kind of the untold items.
And that's what brings me to this place and really to this conversation. It's one serendipitous moment after the next that leads us to being in this hotel lobby in New Orleans, working on a documentary to tell this story about what it means to go back and hold the history of our ancestors and move forward in a way that carries the same intention that honors the way that they lived. This trip is answering the "where are you coming from" question for our organization, because all of our work is based on these historical harms that have happened in our country. And if well grounded in those things, then it helps us better understand the journey that's ahead.
I feel like if more of us, especially who didn't come from the South, who have been removed from this history, were aware of like how powerful it is to be in these spaces, we might honor each other better, honor each other even more. I don't want this to be just a memory. I want this to be a catalyst for something bigger. I want this to be something that, you know, is gonna keep on living on through me.
It is a daunting journey. It is a challenging journey. It is a journey that at times seems impossible to overcome, and yet still, if we march forward with the hope that our ancestors carried, then we can get to the places that our ancestors dreamed and imagined. And then our children will be able to dream and imagine and become champions of places that we could have only fathomed. Like, this is how it works. But if we don't begin at the beginning and make here, then there's no way we can move forward. Not in a way that honors the legacy and the history of our past.
At least one levee has broken in New Orleans, leading to some localized flooding, but there could be far worse still to come as the storm surge and as the rainfall from Hurricane Katrina hits.
Where one part of the levee system may have been overtopped.
There are reports from New Orleans of people trapped in buildings that have come down around them. They have made desperate calls to 911 asking for help, asking for rescue, but the rescuers can't get out. It's simply too dangerous right now.
I know what my grandparents look like up here, but I don't have it here. All that was washed away from Katrina. So that's why I tell everybody, value and appreciate everything that you have. Because when you come down here to see the store, this is it. There's nothing else back here. There's nothing else back here what I'm about to show you. And it's almost like a nightmare, to be honest with you. It's almost like a nightmare, but it's my life. I still live back here. Before Katrina, I had 48 wonderful neighbors. I knew all 48 of them. Today I have 3. That's it, 3. But it's my home. I'm not complaining. I'll do this all over again because people need this here. Because you should not have to catch a couple of buses to feed your family. This is the United States of America. This is not a third world country. And it just shouldn't be like this. It just really shouldn't. I found my purpose. My purpose is simple. It's service. And that's why I was able to go from serving in the United States Army to now serving my community. It was an easy transition. I've been having a ball ever since. So everybody got to find out what you're supposed to be doing in life. I opened up that little black window right there. That's where everybody used to get their groceries from. This line used to be wrapped around the block. Imagine getting your food from a little bitty small window. And I did that for about 3 years until I finally had enough money to open up these doors right here. Come on in, let's just see what the inside look like. It's just a need. It was just a need. Because like they say, you should not be suffering for something simple as food. And there's so many customers, there's so many people that come in here like that, and that's every day. Even though Katrina happened in 2005, they're still hurting today. You know, so it's myself, my mom, my other half, she's just as crazy as I am. Because when everybody told us not to do this here, we did it anyway, because it's a need. It's a need. Some days we're here 6 to 7 days a week doing this here. Because like I said, there's nowhere else to go. If you want to get your hair cut, you're coming here. You want something to eat, you're coming here. You want to wash your clothes, guess what? You're coming here. So when you get home, if you have a store, hug it. If you have neighbors, hug it, value it and appreciate it, because this is it.
Oh yeah, okay.
Better come get you one.
I'm gonna have to get me one.
That's crazy.
Intense and like perfect,
It's my new friend.
Well, if you ever come back to New Orleans, I'm here. That you will see me. So come back and see me again. I appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Yeah, so the way that this trip has impacted me so far, you know, I feel like being from the Pacific Northwest, a black man from the Pacific Northwest, we get robbed for a lot of culture. You know, it's very white there. So when we come to places like New Orleans, Mississippi, other places in the South, I'm around more black people than I've ever been around. So to just stand in these places, even in absence of like some of the specific places we visited, it impacts me in a major way. It makes me feel like this is where home actually is, you know, rather than Seattle, Pacific Northwest, Washington State, where it's like 3% black, you know.
Honestly, I had reservations just from the jump. Doing a pilgrimage about black history amongst mixed company. I wouldn't watch Roots with my white friends, but we down here looking at Roots, you know, as I'm processing things myself and talking about things and looking over at my brothers or my wife or, you know, people that I consider to be allies, you know, and just seeing how other people are looking at my history.
Going to the Whitney plantation was super powerful. Like one of the things that I was really cognizant of was the fact that I did a lot of stuff while I was there on that soil, on that grounds, that would have gotten somebody who looked like me, somebody my skin color, you would have got whipped, you may have got killed, you know, anything could have happened to you for doing some of the things that I did on those grounds today. And it's something as simple as reading. You know, we did a lot of reading. We got to see a wall that listed, you know, like Mandingo Nation and all of these things, and it had the African names for some of the earliest slaves that were brought. That's something that we've been robbed for. Don't know where I come from. You know, I have absolutely no idea, but I know that this gets me closer.
I had a real personal moment, you know, at the plantation. My dad's side of the family, they're honorees, and they're from Baton Rouge. And I saw Honore 3 times on that memorial up there. And my dad's his last name on his dad's side is Green, and I'm a Green. And at the same time, the Honores was up there on the memorial. You had Greens up there, and I was like, what if that was my people meeting on that plantation? Processing all that, you know, getting back on the bus, knowing I might literally have been looking at like my literal ancestors' history. This was a dope moment, and I'll take that with me from the beginning.
I plan to take back knowledge. I work with young kids in middle school and high school, and I plan to shed this knowledge on them while, taking them through the restorative practices. A piece that I took also from the store in the 9th Ward is, identifying your purpose and serving your purpose. And it's special to me because this year I've figured out what my purpose was, and I'm actually living in my purpose, true. That's why I'm here with my team. That's why I serve the way I do and do the work that I do.
We still got some time to go out here, and so I'm sure there'll be more of these moments. But so far, I am inspired. I'm ready to learn some more. I'm willing to learn some more, and I'm just gonna trust the process, man.
Man, you got a great group of people. Man, I tell you, you get this many people together that want to work with young folks, man, that's a blessing. That's a blessing. So I really appreciate y'all. I mean, I just want to say that I really, because I work with young people, I know what it's like, what it is, what it takes, what it entails, and the fact that you guys are here and y'all look like y'all love what you're doing, because nobody's stressed out. There's always 3 things I like to tell groups we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about what happened here in 1964. It was bad, it was ugly. This city was an ugly place to be. This was not a nice city at all in the 60s. And I grew up here, trust me, I know I was here. Over the next 40 years, since that time, we have really transformed this city. The black-white relationship in this city is excellent. People get along, we're all at the table, we make decisions together, we work together. That's one of the reasons why that's another reason why you don't have a lot of crime here, because we all work together from both sides of as they say, both sides of the railroad track. We work together. But that didn't come easy. That took a lot of work. But we're also gonna focus on why it happened. And then at the end, we're gonna talk about, things that we all can do to make sure these things doesn't happen again.
I was pretty sure at some point during this trip that I was gonna feel it. I was gonna feel that burn in my soul, that burn in my spirit. The experience in the morning was powerful, with Brother Leroy. But even when he's talking about violence, he got that optimism and that smile with him. So I didn't leave that experience with the heaviness. But we get to Emmett Till's thing. And there is no justice. That woman that was an accessory to his murder never had to pay for it. And as I'm processing that rage part, there's also the sadness. I just think about when has a black man's life ever mattered in America? I thought about all the nameless, black men that die in this country by the hands of white people. I had a schoolmate that just got gunned down by police a few months ago, and I thought I was gonna go through the community and get people that we went to school with, and we was gonna squad up and make sure he was remembered, and almost everybody I talked to said, I don't even remember who that is. And it just goes to show how you can just be forgotten, just black life that's snuffed out.
I am Benjamin Salisbury. I do serve as Public Engagement and Museum Education Director at the Emmett Till Interpretive Center, which is literally right across the street from the Tallahatchie County Courthouse, which is where the infamous trial of J.W. Milam and Roy Bryant. It took place in September 1955 for the murder of Emmett Lewis Till.
Silence in the court.
Even though I personally wasn't present during any part of the Emmett Till, of Emmett's visit, let alone abduction, murder, or anything of the sort, I and others absolutely have been impacted by that. And I think that's true for a lot of, for lack of a better word, stories.
May I remind you, you're under oath.
So we're in the summer of 1955. Emmett just turned 14, after his birthday. And he's given an invitation to spend the remainder of the summer vacation back in money.
It was really rough, being around, like while we're processing this stuff with Emmett Till, I gotta look around and see the white women who are with us and just thinking damn, that could have been you if you were just born a little sooner. And if you just lived here in Mississippi, what would you have done? Would you have fell in line with white supremacy and the status quo, what people do here? Or would you have been somebody different? Would you have been a liberal, like, so many people in Seattle, Washington claim to be, but they still will call the police on you with the quickness without you committing a crime, just because they say they're scared, Even if it's not calling the police, calling a security guard, just doing anything, to harm a black person, even if it's unintentional. If it's fear-based, yeah, you might really be scared, but why? Why are you so scared when it's your people who's been doing this to my people this whole time? We haven't been victimizing you guys for hundreds of years. It's been us being victimized. It's been us who was put through slavery. We were the ones who were punished during this Jim Crow era, being hung from trees and things like that.
They make their arrival in Mississippi, I want to say August 21st. Quite literally about 3 days into their visit, on August 24th, Emmett, along with Wheeler Parker, the late Simeon Wright, and two others, pulled up to Bryant's Grocery and Meat Market. I believe y'all may have had a chance to visit that site or to visit what's left of it. Emmett, by way of what has been shared with us from Wheeler Parker and Simeon Wright, was not goaded or dared to ask Carolyn Bryant for a date or anything else. Okay? Emmett just wanted some candy and bubble gum, so he went to the store to get some candy and bubble gum. He's in the store for approximately 60 seconds. And when that time lapsed, I believe it is Simeon Wright that goes into the store just to make sure everything is okay. The late Simeon Wright sees the transaction between Emmett and Carolyn Bryant. There was nothing out of the ordinary from what he previewed. He got his candy and bubble gum, they walked out. There was no bye baby or anything of the sort for which Simeon Wright expressed when it comes to them exiting the store. Not very long after the exit, Mrs. Carolyn Bryant does walk out of the store. And as she passes by, Emmett whistles at Carolyn Bryant, right? He does the wolf whistle, so to speak. When he notices the abject fear on the face of everybody outside, he too becomes scared. Emmett begs his family, or begs Wheeler and Simeon not to say anything to Mose Wright, because he knows or believes, very matter-of-factly, that if they share with Uncle Mose what happened, they'd be on the first thing smoking back to Chicago. And quite probably so, because to be clear, black folk had been murdered for things far less than what Emmett had done. And as y'all probably already know, on August 28th at about 2:30 in the morning, the home of Mose Wright is invaded by J.W. Milam and Roy Bryant. They came in with firearms and flashlights in hand. And they quite literally demanded that Emmett be taken out of the bed he's sleeping, for which he was. Emmett was never seen alive again. By September 23rd, an all-white, all-male jury acquits J.W. Milam and Roy Bryant for the charges of murder for Emmett Till. So to put that in perspective, the body of Emmett Till is recovered August 31st. The not guilty verdict is rendered September 23rd, same year. And that speaks to the agency of racism, right? That racism is not just the person-to-person disenfranchisement or abuse. It is the agency and entity and everything else that allows for it, perpetuates it, and even rewards the stuff. What ultimately killed Emmett Till, again, was this environment that perpetuated this stuff, right? And it showed itself by way of the investigation. It showed itself by way of a jury that deliberated for an hour and 6 minutes, right? But it also showed itself in the 52 years of silence as a result of that trial.
If there was anybody that I could share this with right now, it would be Emmett Till. I would want Emmett Till to see, that his death was not for no reason, and that there's still people here this long after the fact that are impacted by it and that are changed by it and want to do life differently because of it. He did not die for no reason, and he is sparking a generation of warriors. That's what's going to happen as a result of this. It's already happened, it's been happening, and I just think that he could look back and smile, you know, despite what happened to him, if he was here seeing how people are impacted by his story today and how they're moved by it.
What will happen now? We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
We're here in Birmingham, Alabama. They used to go by Birmingham. In 1963, the Ku Klux Klan bombed this church. 4 little girls were killed. Churches and a lot of churches down south, man, it's hard to describe. It shocks you again and again how much hate. How can you hate somebody so much that you bomb the church? And then you be like, oh, okay, well, man, this was 1963. But then you go, you know, a few years back there to South Carolina. You know what I'm saying? The prayer meeting, what's the kid's name? Went in there, killed 9 people. There's something about this story here in America where the hate hasn't dissipated. It might go underground for a little while, but it hasn't disappeared. And I think that's our biggest challenge here as a country, is to find ways to overcome, go beyond that.
I want to welcome you all to historic Rickwood Field, the oldest baseball park in the country. The people that sat in those seats, they could have seen Christy Mathewson pitch or Willie Mays play.
I don't care what field it's in, Willie plays all fields. When he hits the ball, it's long gone man. Hits it farther than Campy can. Swings the bats like a little lead pipe. When they reach the ball, it's overripe.
Everybody know who Reggie Jackson is? Okay, Reggie Jackson became Mr. October. He played for the Oakland A's after he left here. Then he went to the Yankees, superhuman in the World Series. That's how he got the name Mr. October.
The base is like a choo-choo train, swings around second like an aeroplane.
This is a picture from 1929 in that same Dixie series, that World Series for minor leagues. The baseball was so big, the stands are full. They've got temporary bleachers in the outfield, and I believe the crowd was 29,000.
That Giants kid is great. Yes, he covers center like he had jet shoes. The other batters get the Willie blues.
If you'll look over here, you'll see the two greatest names in baseball history. You'll see Babe Ruth. The next picture is Willie Mays. He was 17 years old. He was standing in right field, and I tell everybody he's smiling because he's skipping school to play baseball. Who wouldn't smile to do that? We'll round up some gloves and bats and balls and hope that you can play without getting hurt.
I was asked a question about who I would wanted to bring with me on this trip. And again, I originally said no one because I wanted that space for myself to be able to fill myself with this knowledge and then be able to take it back to my people in Seattle. However, yesterday we went to Rickwood Fields, and my answer had changed prior to that anyway, to be my grandfather, who passed away 7 years ago. And when I went to Rickwood Fields, it further solidified the reason why I wanted my grandfather to be here with me. I remember being, I don't know, 7, 8 years old. And one of the first times that my grandfather took myself and my brothers to a baseball game in Indianapolis, Indiana. It was a minor league team, the Indianapolis Indians. And I really don't remember a ton about that day, other than the fact that I was so happy to be spending time with my grandfather. And when I was out there batting on Rickwood Field, it reminded me, I felt the euphoria that I remembered as a child on that day. And I've played softball for many years, and I have never made that connection to my love of holding a bat in my hand, of playing softball, to that moment of having an opportunity to spend some time with my grandfather. And yesterday, for the very first time, I was able to connect those emotions. The same euphoria I felt while I was out there was what I felt when I was a kid. And later that evening, I called my mom and I told her that I made that connection. I said, I think I finally understand why I love softball so much, why I love baseball, why I love just hitting the ball. And she said, yeah, I bet you do. You loved your grandpa, and he loved you. I think I'm noticing a trend at this point. One of the things I'm noticing is that every day I want to say, man, today was hard. But it's true, today was really hard, was really difficult. We went to the Legacy Museum, and the Legacy Museum is a story of enslaved persons from slavery to mass incarceration.
I'm the privileged one that gets the opportunity to be here when they're the ones with the direct blood ties to the land, where it's their roots and their histories. And I want to keep that central, that it's my coworkers' roots and histories, and I want to keep that central, that it's American history that I'm actively a part of, and how do I center that and stay in presence and not shy away from it.
We are not taught this in public school education. In the curriculum, it is incredibly inaccurate, it's whitewashed, and you know, it's, at the end of the day, I think it's propaganda. Growing up, all the different ways that institutions and people of power share information inaccurately. So there's, you know, in our education systems, and then we are in the age where there's so much information out there, the advancement of technology, and there's a lot of fake news and non-reliable sources.
Walking with my coworkers through the museum who were non-Black, I noticed that several of them would say things like, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel, or I don't know if I can talk about this with, with my other coworkers who are black, not wanting to put the stress of that moment back on another black person. Understandably so, I get that. But at the same time, this history is our history. It's okay if you have emotions about that, because I certainly did.
The information they're receiving, this is the history. We don't frame the history, we don't change the history. We present people who have perspective and experience, lived experience with the history, and so they tell their story, their very personal stories. Hearing it from real life people who were there in many ways deepens the knowledge.
I just wanted to say that it's important for us to really take responsibility for what we did not do. We spend a lot of times when we talk about civil rights and all these issues, we talk about what happened, what we did, and the power of all of that. And you can't go anywhere in the world and not hear the name Rosa Parks. What happened to Rosa Parks after she made her heroic stand? The MIA was still around. They didn't hire her. The NAACP might have been banned in Alabama, but it was still going on around the country. They didn't hire her. So what responsibility do we have to those who give it all?
She's forgotten. She's forgotten in Detroit. They don't even know she's there. And the rest of the people forget. So that's what our task is now. Bring up the hidden figures. Most people, can you imagine Ms. Rosa Parks being a hidden figure? That's because we don't value this history. We don't teach it. They're not going to allow it to be taught in the schools, but that's what we have to fight for if we want a democracy and if we want to go forward instead of going backwards. And we're not going backwards.
What was happening during our day was extremely innovative. You know, it was like you began to break some glass. And you had no idea how it was going to come. It's just, I'm just tired, sick and tired of being tired.
We grew up with people that said, well, I don't want to be the one. I'm not going to be the token. I'm not going to be their quota. And see, I was just the opposite. I'll be it. And if you think that they're not going to know that I'm there, because I'm going to raise my hand and say, excuse me, would you repeat that? And I'm going to stand up to say it. So your eyes can be on me to see that I'm there. I'm not there to fill a quote. I'm there because I have a right to be here. I worked to be here. So it's, you know, it's, you get an attitude. You know, you just know, you know how to maneuver through that system with a smile, and as you say, to befriend people, to make sure that you're winning them, to bring them on your side, and not give them a reason to fight you. But it's still that never give in attitude that I had from learning all of those years of, you know it's right.
I think that one of the lessons I think that we need is need to have more people that are willing to make the sacrifice. Because people get tired, they get weary. You know, and when they get tired and weary, if there's nobody to take the gauntlet and move on a few more steps while you get a little rest, you know, it just dies.
How am I going to sit down at my Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas dinners and talk to my family or my partner's families about what I saw in a way that they will want to listen? Even if they may be ignorant on the topic and may not even be searching for understanding, how am I going to accurately convey these words in a way that reach into the human inside of them and pull out that humanity and understanding?
I think what's important is that these people that we talk about are individuals, you know, and they were speaking and dealing with their truth, and found out that they were not alone in their truth. And with that, you develop a cadre. and then you can move forward. You see what I'm saying? Martin Luther King did not come here to be any kind of freedom anything. He came here to finish his doctorate and probably move on.
It's been deeply uncomfortable and incredibly challenging in all the right ways. I mean, we've been in New Orleans, we've been in Memphis, we were in Birmingham, now we're in Montgomery. We're going to be in Selma tomorrow morning. Yeah, it's been deeply challenging for everybody on the team. I think that you know, you put together 30 or so folks on a bus for a week, hopping from hotel to hotel, site to site, and in between diving deep into historical harms that bring up a lot of feelings and emotions, and it's complicated. And it's everything that I hoped it would be and more. Because when the dust settles after we get home, there's going to be something magical to be found.
What has stood out to me is, you know, after a hard day or something that we've experienced together that I know people are feeling, that I know people need to process, I can see those conversations happening in corners of the room or, you know, in the lobby over breakfast. And it usually looks like what stands out to me is it's a cross difference. That's when I know that there's something kind of happening at a deeper level.
Have a dream. That's what Dr. King said. Have gives hope, doesn't it? Because the dream didn't die with Dr. King. It's still here as long as we're here, as long as they're here. The dream is alive and well. You know what I call all lives matter? Your happy place. That's where you go when you don't want to do anything. When you see injustice, and you feel like it doesn't affect you, so you don't do anything. All lives matter. You're walking like this, because you know as well as I know, black, brown, yellow, and red people in this United States are catching heck. Are catching heck. And you're gonna say, all lives matter. No, they don't. They do not. And if you find a place that they do matter, call me. I want to move all the people I love there. I need you on the battlefield, making sure that one day and one day soon, by the time they are our age, we can all say, child, all lives matter, and it be the truth. Is that clear? Dr. King chose my hometown to be the headquarters for the battle for voting rights for all citizens in these United States. Dr. King brought exactly what he was supposed to bring to every movement he's been involved in. I call it the 3 M's. He brought money. No revolution can be fought without finance. He brought motivation. To this day, when I hear his voice, I want to get up and save the world. And he brought the media. Without those 3 ingredients, even today, you can't have any change. Things really heated up when Dr. King came. He sent his lieutenants not to counties all around us, throughout what we call the Alabama Black Belt. He sent Reverend James Orange to Perry County. Perry County is a small rural county approximately 30 miles west of us. Marion is the county seat. In Marion, Reverend Orange found it easier to organize students. After all, their parents worked for the people who were trying to keep us from getting the right to vote. They marched on their courthouse and were arrested, all of them. That evening, they let the children out. They kept Reverend Orange. A mass meeting was being held at a church approximately 2 blocks from the jail. The children ran into the church and disrupted this meeting. They said, you have to do something. You have to do something now. They're going to kill him. The people in the church decided that they would walk down to that jail, walk around it all night long in hopes that their mere presence would save this man's life. When they left the church, they were attacked and brutally beaten by law enforcement officers. A young man named Jimmy Lee Jackson emerged from the church just in time to see a state trooper beating his grandfather, his 82-year-old grandfather. Jimmy ran over and pleaded with this trooper, but Jimmy's mom saw them beating her dad too, and she ran over. As she approached, that trooper drew back that billy club to hit her. And Jimmy did what I would have done. He stepped in front of his mom. That trooper shot him. Jimmy died 8 days later. It was then that the leaders decided to walk from Selma to Montgomery to protest this young man's senseless death and demand the right to vote from our then Governor George Wallace. On March 7th, we gathered on the playground where you picked up that rock, and led by John Lewis and Hosea Williams, came down this street and over that bridge and met a wall of policemen. I knew then we were not going to Montgomery. As I came down further, I saw the service roads on each side were filled with policemen. Some standing, some sitting in cars, some sitting on cars, some even sitting on horses, which further affirmed that we were not going to Montgomery that day. Before we could turn to run, it was too late. They came in from both sides, the front and the back. There was just nowhere to go. And they were just beating people, old, young, black, white, male, female, didn't matter. They were just beating people. People lay everywhere, bleeding, not moving. And you couldn't stop to help them, or you'd be beaten too. It seemed like it lasted an eternity. The last thing that I remember on that bridge that day is seeing this horse and this lady. And I don't know what happened. Did the man on the horse hit her and she fell? Or did the horse just run over her? I don't know. I do know as I sit here 57 years later, I can still hear the sound her head made when it hit that pavement. I didn't want any more freedom. Whatever the cost of this freedom was just too much for this 11-year-old. They kept talking, trying to coax me across as sisters would do. Finally, I remember one of them saying, "Come on, they're not gonna beat Dr. King." I went, but I was terrified. This time, Dr. King asked permission to pass. Policeman told him the same thing. There would be no march between Selma and Montgomery. But this time, the front went down. Dr. Abernathy said a prayer. And after prayer, we stood up and followed Dr. Abernathy and Dr. King back to Brown Chapel, where Dr. King held a mass meeting. At that mass meeting, he told us he had applied for a court order that would give us the legal right to walk from Selma to Montgomery if we so wanted to, but more importantly, be protected. And on March 21st, we left Brown Chapel one more time, came over that bridge, and those same policemen who beat us up had to protect the marchers all the way from Selma to Montgomery. 54 miles. I walked the first 10 miles, And I walked from St. Jude, the last leg, from St. Jude in Montgomery to the Capitol. My sister Linda, with the 35 stitches, became the youngest marcher to march every step of the way. Now, there are no motels between Selma and Montgomery today. There were none then. People slept on the ground. Everything had to be brought to the marchers. On August 6th of that very same year, the Voting Rights Act was signed, and it removed those obstacles that prevented us from voting. And that same act has been under attack ever since.
I come to say to you this afternoon, however difficult the moment,
yes, sir,
however frustrating the hour, it will not be long, because truth crushed to earth will rise again.
Yes, sir.
How long? Not long.
Not long.
Because mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Yes, sir.
He's trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored.
Yes, sir.
He's loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword.
Yes,
his truth is marching on.
Yes, sir.
Tell them, Doctor. Today I want to say to the state of Alabama.
Yes, sir.
Today I want to say to the people of America and the nations of the world that we are not about to turn around.
Yes, sir.
We are on the move now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we are on the move, and no wave of racism can stop us.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it started, actually the first person who imagined this was in 1869. It was this veteran in Columbus. He's like, I wish that they'd turn the mountain into a monument to the great Confederate generals. But when it actually started getting going was in 1915. There was an editorial made by a man who, a well-known editor, well-known segregationist, and the president of the Daughters of the Confederacy saw it and was like, oh, this is a good idea. And she wrote a letter to the Philadelphia Inquirer. And then she wrote a letter to Gutzon Borglum, who no one knew yet, really. He had built one statue to Lincoln, but we know him today because he made Mount Rushmore. Gutzon Borglum, who's the first carver, is in the Klan. And many of the members of the first, it was a nonprofit that led this carving effort, the Stone Mountain Confederate Memorial Association. They have a magazine, and they even get our national government to print a coin so that they can raise money for this effort.
Who owns all of this?
State of Georgia.
State of Georgia.
So my tax dollars are used to, I am paying to, and I say this all the time, they probably are sick of hearing me saying it. I am paying my state to disrespect me.
Yes, and that's the way we look at it too. I'm Teresa Hardy. I'm a former NAACP president. Under my leadership, we fought to have the carvings removed, no matter what. We also fought to have all of the flags removed. Anything of Confederacy to be removed from public places. So we've had a lot of bumping heads with the Confederacy, Daughters and Sons of Confederacy. I'm not scared of them, and I'm not scared of anybody as it relates to having our voice heard. And I mean, this is all nonviolence type things, so we should continue to do that. But letting you know what the history is and what the history does to us now, I think that's what's going to be key to the truth telling, the true truth telling of this mountain.
As you're working towards this, like with the Daughters of the Confederacy, the Sons of the Confederacy, and other groups that are proponents of it, what type of pushback is like the NAACP getting and others, folks that are mobilizing around this getting? Like, what does that look like?
Well, it looks like it's stagnant. What we get, the good thing what we get is the media. What we don't get is a change. That's what we're not getting. I think we've articulated very, very well what we want done. I think we're being ignored, or they're hearing us because, like, they say, oh, we're going to have something done and we're going to create this committee that's going to tell the truth. Whose truth? Right? That's the problem now, is like identifying who's that truth. So we'll see with that. We're probably going to say something against that as well. So.
Okay, guys, we'll go with the Confederate flags. The carving is finally finished, and they have the ceremonies in 1970.
We must recall those principles of loyalty, dignity, and honor that shine through the lives of men we commemorate today. They are the bedrock of idealism that underlies our hopes for future generations.
They would sing along, they would link arms, people would be crying. They would just think that they were in heaven.
The park contends these fall under the protections of the statute that protects Confederate monuments. So they take the same position that you can't just remove these. You know, they have to be relocated and put into a similar sort of display, area of protection.
This monument too, or this platform, is claimed to be built with the stones of what used to be a Confederate veterans home. It kind of shows that kind of mystique of the lost cause, saving all the parts, seeing these men as magical. And it's the only trace of really the United Daughters of the Confederacy in the park, even though in the first carving effort, they played a major role.
We have a lot of people who said leave it alone, but when things got stirred up, here's the way I look at things. Until all of us is free, none of us is free. It's just point blank, right? Whether we're in Georgia, I'm originally from Alabama, so it's deep in my soul to make sure that black folks get their rights. Remember, if things was kept the same, we would be 3/5 a person. I mean, and people forget about those things, which caused the KKK to be as strong as they are, and then you have this thing of white supremacy. You have Jim Crow, you got Willie Lynch, which Willie Lynch is what she's explaining. The after effects of all of this really gets us to 2022, which is shameful, right? That we literally have to fight to tell someone to do what's right. And white supremacy needs to be dismanded, and it needs to be gone. And if we're going to live in the land of the free, how are we going to do that if we're not all free? Right now, it is the divided states of America. There's nothing united about what we got right now under this Constitution, right? We got this Constitution, and then we got the state saying you're not going to take away our rights. What rights? You don't got no rights. It says we the people. And if it's we the people, I think that we need to get to a point where the people empower.
I really think it's so important that our young people don't lose this history. That's part of our culture, is passing down things, through oral, customs anyway. And we've lost that. So I would just really bring young people. I'd bring whole families if I could. Families that are struggling. This will bring them bond together, and we can build that village that our communities need.
I don't have a lot of travel experience, and my world is really small still. I didn't really get to travel much until I was a full-grown adult, so I'm catching up. And It doesn't feel good. It feels gross. And I don't see how anyone can look at that stuff and not see that it's gross. Like my body wants to repel the information. It doesn't even want to keep it in because it's so disgusting. So I don't feel good, but I feel motivated and determined and driven to make a difference in my own community. And I see the difference and the parallels within my community and the community down here in the South. And in the Pacific Northwest, we don't get it.
As the communications manager for Choose 180, I feel an even bigger spark inside of me to share the truth about what happens in this country, how we are founded on racism, and it continues today. And we didn't leave the times of enslavement, it just has changed names. And although we talk about these things within our organization and within our circles, the broader public needs to know. And after going to the Equal Justice Initiative, they laid it out so clearly, the path of how we got to where we are today. And I just want to help everybody to be able to understand that as much as I can.
We've covered 5 states in 7 days. I didn't know what to expect when we first started out. But this trip has helped me to revive my soul. And what I would love to take back with me is that energy. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose that energy when I go back and we start working 40 hours a week again, working with the community, working with the young people. I want to keep that fire.
We are different. We are changed in some unimaginable ways. What they're taking from this journey is everything that I was yearning for when I imagined this possibility in its infancy, and here we are together, ready to go home and hit the ground running with emotions and feelings that are compelling and these things that are indwelling that we had never previously held collectively as a squad. I'm honored by each and every one of them. I do applaud their willingness to go deep, to stand in the tension, to reflect overnight as they wake from their sleep, to still press forward, even though these conversations and places have been difficult and have immersed us in a trauma of our past. I am overwhelmed with emotions. I'm compelled to simply believe. On this last day of our journey, it was everything I believed that it could be.
What do I see through a lens of fear? 1,000 little steps to go. What do I fear after all these years? Lord knows I don't even know. I've been running on the edge of a sundial, sleeping in the shadow. I've been begging you to see me, then hiding beyond the unreachable. Looking out left on a right-hand turn, just trying to make